Hello and welcome to CTV News Across Canada for Friday, February 28th. We have got the top local stories, some coast-to-coast stories that affect you and our country. Thanks for joining us.
Less than 3 months into the search of the Prairie Green landfill, family members are already having to come to terms with a potential discovery.
I did not prepare myself for it happening so soon. When I got the call yesterday, my heart dropped right down to my stomach.
A search for the remains of Morgan Harris and Mercedes Myron began in early December. Now the province says potential human remains have been found at the landfill. Relatives were notified and visited the site and are now trying to process the news.
That scary movie we've been living for the last couple years has become a reality.
It's a good thing that we found the remains. It's also very, very hard.
The families say they feel vindicated as they've been pushing for a search for years. Jeremy Skibitsky was convicted last year of 4 counts of first-degree murder for the deaths of Myron Harris, Rebecca Contois, and an unidentified victim named Buffalo Woman. But the Winnipeg Police Service and the former Stephenson government said they could not search due to safety concerns.
It makes my blood boil to know that they've dragged us these last 2 years through all this anguish.
So if people would have just listened to us and, realized that they are there, this could have happened a lot sooner.
Premier Wab Kinew, who initiated the search, says the RCMP and the Chief Medical Examiner's Office are investigating to determine the identity of the remains, using DNA to see if there is a match.
So there should be a process if this is one of the loved ones of these families to provide identification, or if this is going to take us in a different direction, then we need to be open to that possibility too, because this is very early days.
Now, when the discovery was made yesterday, Premier Wab Kinew says that the search was paused, but work started again today. The search continues.
Jeff, what do we know about the discovery that was made?
Yeah, the Premier walked us through what actually happened yesterday. A search team made the discovery, what they thought are, potential human remains. And as per protocol, he says a second search team then comes in to kind of, double check their work. Following that, forensic anthropologists then come in to kind of confirm the discovery, and that's when RCMP were called.
All right, thanks for this, Jeff.
Alberta has never hesitated to rise to any challenge, to fight for what's fair or fight for whatever might threaten our quality of life. And, Mr. Speaker, we will never hesitate.
The income tax break is aimed at all Albertans, but those savings will be partly offset by a hike to the education portion of your property taxes. Meanwhile, our province is plunging deep into deficit for the first time since the COVID era. Jordan Canigan is at the legislature tonight. And Jordan, it's a tough budget full of uncertainty.
Tara, it really is. Between that possible trade war, falling oil prices, and increased spending, the deficit is billions and billions of dollars. But there is a bit of good news for Albertans.
Budget 2025 is meeting the challenge faced by Albertans.
And what a significant challenge it is. Tariffs and countermeasures hang over Budget 2025, bringing unpredictability and a deficit for at least 3 years.
The tariffs is one thing. Obviously, we have more uncertainty right now, but our own balance sheet forecasting ability is more volatile.
The projected deficit for this year is $5.2 billion, and the shortfall continues through 2028. Overall revenue plummets by about $6 billion, mostly due to falling oil and gas prices and a weak dollar, while spending jumps 6%, up to $79 billion this year.
I am absolutely shocked at a $10 billion turnaround in our fiscal position in 1 year, from over a $5 billion surplus to over a $5 billion deficit.
There is some help. A long-promised income tax break is coming. It'll save the average Albertan about $750 per year, but it'll cost the government $1.2 billion. You should start to see the impact of that tax break on your paycheck by June.
It's one thing to look at what Alberta can withstand through all of this uncertainty and forecast from a government of Alberta
revenue perspective, but it's the same uncertainty and has the same potential consequence for Albertan households.
But the province's education property tax rate is going up to help cover some of that cost, so most people won't really see a full $750 break.
Remember, deficits are nothing but deferred taxation. They got to get paid back. So if you don't pay for it this year, your children and your grandchildren are going to pay for it with interest.
Big changes are being made at one of the region's major seafood companies. Clearwater is getting out of a significant part of its lobster business. And the company is selling one Nova Scotia lobster facility and has halted production at another. CTV's Hafsa Arif is in the newsroom. Hafsa, what do we know about job losses at this point?
Todd, I spoke with the mayor of Lockport, who says people in the community were informed of layoffs yesterday. The town of roughly 480 people, approximately 100 of them worked at its local Clearwater plant. And it all comes down to Clearwater shifting its focus to offshore fishing. A large vessel will fish lobster in deep water, then process and package the catch on board. A different approach from relying on inshore lobster boats. Right now, it's planning to sell the live lobster holding facility in Arichat in Cape Breton, which is currently sitting empty. Workers have been let go. The company will also no longer operate the seasonal processing line at the Lockport facility on Nova Scotia's South Shore. But the plant there will remain open and process scallops. The town mayor says the loss hits hard.
Many of our residents have worked there for a number of years, and some households have lost, 2-3 people lost their jobs at one time. So it's been tough.
In a statement to CTV News, Clearwater Seafood says the staff at Arichat were temporarily laid off, subject to the completion of a final agreement of purchase and sale. The employees in Arichat will transition to the new owner of the facility. While they can't speak to job losses, the Lobster Council of Canada says the impacts will be limited for buyers and dealers who will have to find another home for their lobster. But the hope is that won't take too long. Todd?
All right, Hafsa Arif starting us off in the newsroom this evening.
Francois St. Marie can see his truck, but doesn't know if it's still drivable.
We're kind of left in the dark, and that's the frustrating part in all of this.
St. Marie owns this red truck, caught right on the edge of where the parking garage on Slater Street partially collapsed early Wednesday morning.
Saw the images of my red truck being on a lot of the media sources. I was shocked and worried as to, what the next steps were going to be and how long this was actually going to take.
The parkade owner and property management company have not yet provided a timeline for removing the 50 or so vehicles from the structure. In a statement, GWL Realty advisors say, "We're working closely with the city, emergency crews, and a local team of experts to address the situation, render the site safe, and allow for the removal of any vehicles. We will be engaging with the relevant parties to investigate the cause of this incident." Thursday, crews were busy cleaning up after the front of the parkade was demolished.
So they worked overnight to remove the debris from the building. At least in that first section, they demolished the part that was initially compromised. What they're doing with that now is gaining access so the engineers can come out and decide what amount of shoring or what can be done to support the structure in the interim.
But for some, the wait is more than just an inconvenience.
I personally have a car seat that I had to now figure out how I'm going to be able to bring my child to daycare and so forth.
Dave Charbonneau, CTV News.
In recent weeks, some Amazon customers in Quebec have been growing increasingly frustrated.
I ordered a jacket, hat, and gloves. Simple.
Earlier this month, Michael Katsoufis ordered winter clothes from Amazon. With his Prime membership, his orders used to arrive in 1 or 2 days, but not this time.
Then I check on the 14th and it's changed to estimated delivery the 28th or somewhere between, next spring, basically.
Katsoufis says it took a lot of back and forth with Amazon to cancel his order and get a refund.
I ended up going to Simon's and spending less money and less time.
In January, Amazon shut down its Quebec warehouses. Orders are now shipped from outside of the province and delivered by third-party couriers. The company has claimed it's about delivering services in an efficient and cost-effective way. But Jason Statlander, who works in IT, says lately his deliveries have been anything but efficient.
I have a client who's in her 90s and she's waiting for a little piece to plug in her monitor so she could use her computer. Didn't come in, and it got lost because the further it's coming from, the more chance there is that there's something going to be lost along the way.
An Amazon Prime membership in Canada is $99 a year or $10 a month plus tax, and Amazon's website still advertises free 2-day shipping as a perk. But of the dozens of items CTV searched on Amazon, estimated delivery times were consistently between 4 and 6 days. In an email to CTV, a spokesperson for Amazon says delivery speeds can vary for numerous reasons, including weather and supply chain issues. This is why we're transparent with customers throughout the shopping journey and checkout process about when exactly they can expect their orders to arrive.
If you paid your $10 a month and you didn't get your service, you should get some form of compensation.
Montreal law firm Slater Vecchio is seeking court approval to launch a class action lawsuit against Amazon, alleging the company did not respect the 2-day delivery times promised to its Prime subscribers.
We're talking about a lot of complaints and a lot of delay, and so it just doesn't make sense that if you close all your warehouses, that service is going to be better for cheaper.
Meantime, Koutsoufis is thinking about canceling his Prime membership.
I could have gone to Italy, had a jacket made by a very old man named Giuseppe, made to measure, come back, and the order I made with Amazon still would be on its way.
Even though he got a refund, he says a package arrived from Amazon just the other day, and it contained the wrong jacket. Angela McKenzie, CTV News.
Kim Morton took her grandkids out sledding for the afternoon. They noticed something near the park entrance.
I'm just like, what's going on over there?
In this case, it's not what is there, but what isn't. A life-size bronze statue of women's rights advocate Emily Murphy stood here. At some point prior to Tuesday, that statue disappeared. The only thing remaining are the shoes.
It looks like she has been cut off at the ankles and stolen.
That's very weird and awful.
I don't understand why people vandalize that. Like, who's doing this and why?
Stealing a statue of this size, not an easy feat.
From what we can tell, it looks like they use some power tools.
The statue was erected in the early 90s to remember the famous 5 activists who helped women gain personhood in Canada. Murphy's legacy has been criticized for racist comments and her role in the Sexual Sterilization Act. In 2021, the statue was vandalized, but it remained in place until now.
When something does go missing or something does get vandalized, it takes quite a bit of effort to restore or replace the pieces, and it actually ruins it for everyone.
This statue of Emily Murphy isn't the first public art piece of its kind to go missing. For several years, plaques and statues like it have vanished around the Edmonton area. The fear is that this one was taken because of its valuable metal.
With any bronzes or any copper alloys at this point, it is worth quite a bit of money, unfortunately.
Officials are hoping the statue can be recovered and restored. Over on the hill, the Morton family is getting their last few runs in, reflecting on the namesake of this park and what the absence means for the city.
And this is a very well-used park, and then to have something like that happen, it's disheartening for sure to see that.
Edmonton police confirm they are investigating the statue's disappearance. Connor Hogg, CTV News, Edmonton.
Whether it's a restaurant, a mall, or a store, there's no shortage of bear spray incidents reported to police in Saskatoon.
It's the weapon of choice now. It used to be knives. Now it's bear spray.
Many incidents recently have been reported on buses. Peterson says 3 alone on Tuesday night. Last weekend, police responded to 10 calls for bear spray, but that's nothing new to them after taking 31 calls in January, an average of 1 per day.
You spray it in a bus, and you're getting everybody, including the operator.
Police say many bear spray calls don't meet the criteria to be shared publicly. Last year, the province introduced fines of up to $100,000 and restricting where people can transport it in urban settings. But Health Canada regulates it at a federal level. Retailers have to keep sales records and include names and addresses, but it's not just available at Canadian Tire or some other big box retailers. Bear spray can be bought online or at other less prominent locations. The owner of this convenience store on 20 22nd Street and Avenue P, says he regularly sold bear spray until 1 month ago when police asked him to stop. Last year, Saskatoon Transit announced a 9-step plan to increase safety on buses across the city. That included members of the fire department's community support team being present at bus terminals and routes. But with buses being a constant target of bear spray, Peterson says more action is needed now.
I would suggest transit police would be a good addition to what we already have.
Keenan Sorakan, CTV News, Saskatoon.
Criminals are creating websites that look like the real thing, and when people transfer their money, it basically disappears. There are calls for banks to step up and do more to protect their customers and refund those who have been scammed.
You thought you were on the real PC Financial website.
Of course I did.
Walter Yamka of Oakville wanted to transfer money into a GIC investment last fall. He typed best GIC rates into the Google search engine and clicked on a website that appeared to be PC Financial's and called their number.
I said, I can come up with $750,000.
Yamka asked his bank to transfer the money, but it was a fake website, and he was scammed out of $750,000.
The bank should confirm the receivers that they're legitimate.
I'm devastated. I'm devastated that people are able to do this.
Samantha Barnes from near Calgary saw the story and contacted CTV News as the same scam happened to her. She was also searching online for GIC rates and clicked on a spoofed PC Financial website. She was scammed out of $233,000. She says she raised concerns because the money was being sent to a BMO account and not PC Financial, but her bank wired the funds anyway.
It was a very uncomfortable situation. Yes, I was there doing it, but I feel like the banks really could have done a whole lot more to prevent this from happening.
CTV News spoke with another victim from Kitchener who also lost $900,000 to the same scam.
The banks have been completely negligent in setting up an online banking system and not putting in place the safeguards to prevent these kind of fraudulent rip-offs of their customers.
PC Financial does not sell GICs. In both cases, Yamka's Bank, CIBC, and Barnes Bank, TD, said while staff will ask questions, if a client authorizes a transaction, they will follow their instructions. Duff Conacher says that's not good enough and feels banks should refund a customer's money if they don't catch the scam.
The Bank Act should be changed to say, banks, unless you can prove that you went through the full process of due diligence, you're paying the customer back.
And banks claim they're updating systems to stay ahead of fraud, but some scammers seem to be one step ahead of them. Bank customers need to be vigilant and be careful moving money and assume something is a scam until you're sure that it isn't. On your side, I'm Pat Foran.
The team at Fritos & Company are scrambling to get a large order on its way to the East Coast. Fritos & Company makes Brazilian-style croquettes with traditional and unique flavor profiles, including pizza and churro. In 3 years, it's gone from a two-man operation to having more than 20 employees. The owners credit agencies like the London Small Business Centre and the Grove, a food business incubator in the Western Fair District.
Since we began, I knew we were going to have a lot of challenges, and we need people working with us. So we always say that we need people better than us to help us.
The company has grown dramatically in the last year.
In this year, we have like almost 400 new locations across Canada. And just to have an idea, in the beginning it was just Marcel and I doing everything. And now we have almost 20 employees.
They started on the path to doing business in the United States, but promised tariffs by U.S. President Trump has made that future a little blurry.
These are the moments that help define how resilient an economy and a nation can be.
London Economic Development Corporation CEO Kapil Lakocha is working with the city and other community partners to help businesses weather the tariffs, including diversifying the economy. The London Economic Development Corporation has consistently been attracting agri-food businesses to this region, and many of those are from Europe.
We're doing businesses with many different parts of the world in real time. So this geographical proximity that's benefited both U.S. and Canada over the years is not necessarily the only economic strategy. This is why diversified economic footprint is never going out of style.
The Small Business Center is part of the effort to help emerging businesses develop strategies that may include a pivot.
We have a number of businesses we've been working with over the last couple of years who've been gearing up to sell to the U.S. market. They've increased their production capacity, And they may not have yet fully entered the U.S. market. And so now they've got capacity, they need to find other opportunities.
London Mayor Josh Morgan is encouraging London-based institutions and businesses to focus their procurement efforts on Canadian companies, and he's forming an economic response team.
We need the ability to make decisions very quickly in this environment for both what's happening on the ground here in the city, as well as moves and changes that other levels of government may make in response.
The team will focus on things like the Foodpreneur program, which helps grow agri-food initiatives, and on global startups. Jerry Dewan, CTV News.
This whole campaign is about saying, no, you don't deserve this. You deserve much better.
Kevin Frankish was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes almost a decade ago. The television presenter and media personality has joined Abbott's Above the Bias campaign. That's a short film created to raise awareness about diabetes stigma.
That's why I really wanted to be a part of this campaign, is because I was just blown away by the fact that people were reporting these things and the stigma and the blaming.
Abbott's survey indicates 1 in 3 Canadians living with diabetes have skipped or missed a doctor's appointment due to shame and stigma. Additionally, 74% of Canadians living with diabetes say their condition has had some negative impact on their mental health. Laura Siren is president of Diabetes Canada and is a type 2 diabetic. She says the stigma is very real.
I think one thing is you gave it to yourself. The second thing, and I think this is particularly true for people with type 1 diabetes, which is about 10% of all people with diabetes live with type 1, is there's a lot of things you can't do.
Frankish, who was born and raised in North Bay, says limited access to health care can create further barriers to treatment.
I grew up in Northern Ontario, and I know that the way you receive any sort of medical treatment or support sometimes can be a little more limited. And so, unfortunately, sometimes the stigma can grow more that way.
Siren says one solution to help address the stigma is to feel supported and hear encouragement from others.
If there's 4 million Canadians, that's 10%. Everybody who's watching this probably knows somebody. Okay? And when have you said, if you know someone, when have you said, hey, I don't hear you talk about that much, or, I'm always here.
Amanda Hicks, CTV News, Sudbury.
Dozens took their concerns to Vancouver City Hall.
It just doesn't seem fair that the powers that be just want to push you out of your homes.
67-year-old Jose Padua is partially blind and has been in and out of SROs and shelters for years.
My disability has kind of sidetracked everything, and now I'm finding myself in this situation. So it's a tough go, but you just keep going.
The sad thing is there's a huge turnout because the problem affects so many people. 60% of the people in our city cannot afford to live on market housing.
Inside the chambers, more than 90 residents were largely opposed to Mayor Ken Sim's move to pause most new supportive housing developments in his city, with some exceptions.
Seniors housing, youth housing, refurbishments, replacement, we're still going to be, pursuing that. But what we're saying is, those are going to be the focuses.
While Sim has walked back a ban on all new supportive housing, he continues to insist other cities need to do their part.
We already have enough challenges in the city of Vancouver. We have crumbling SRO stock that is inhabitable. It's not compassionate. It's not dignified. We need to repair that.
An ABC councillor ousted from the party after taking issue with the plan describes it as poor leadership.
The biggest city in our region to sort of shut our doors and say we're not going to be part of the solution anymore and everyone else has to pick up the slack.
Her motion to invite BC Housing and the province to speak with council about the implications of the mayor's proposal was defeated by the ABC majority. Yasmin Gantam, CTV News, Vancouver.